All right, everyone, welcome to our November meeting and also our final meeting of the semester. It's warm, fuzzy sock season. So our meeting for next semester meetings isn't until next week, so I don't have any dates for you yet, but those will be coming soon. The agenda for today is an update from our PHPSG rep, an update from distinguished lecturer, alumni inspiration series updates. Our girls from Student Conclave have an awesome video they made to show you guys from Student Conclave. And then finally, another journal club. That's why I wanted to wait.
Hi guys, me again. So trivia night. I know some of you weren't here last time because of the Jace for Kids meeting, but I had asked for any volunteers to be on the trivia night committee. Some of the tasks that'll be is like coming up with a fun email design that will go out to everyone when we have an official date, asking them to sign up, and then coming up with trivia questions, helping me the night of if possible, and then I don't know what else. But yeah, so send me an email if you're interested. Megan Hilskamp has already said that she will help me out, which is much appreciated.
Did you say?
But I would love a couple more.
What did you say it was going to be?
It's not officially on this date yet, but I did just hear back that we can most likely make it work at Zipline on January 25th at 7:30 p.m. So you don't have to be available the night of for the committee, and if you aren't available the night of, then I'll probably put you in charge of coming up with questions, since then you can still, or like everyone else can still be on the team if they want to be. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Julie?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. So for the Distinguished Lecture, it's the 10th annual event this year, as you know, and the date has been confirmed for Thursday, March 15th from 5:30 to 7. And this is the Thursday that we get back from spring break, so that'll be nice because we shouldn't have too much to do then. The location is still to be determined. They have to approve the spring classes first in order for us to get the room, but it will most likely be in Geo4, just like it was last year. And I think we mentioned this earlier, but we're hoping to do a little cocktail party beforehand, and that will also have more information later. But keep that in mind because we'll send out some future signups to help with, like, again, a little subcommittee kind of like Claire to just help out with advertising, and then also the day of the event.
Thank you. Actually, it's supposed to be a collaboration.
Hi guys. Okay, so we sent out an email to alumni to see who would all be interested. And what we kind of got from their feedback and kind of like what we have talked about is that we want to make it more of a collaboration rather than a mentorship. So it's more of a constant communication with whoever you would be paired with your alumni. We didn't get that many respondents to have everybody have an alumni assigned to them. So we're going to have an application process in order to kind of minimize that down a little bit. So that will be sent out before we leave for holiday break, and then it'll be due sometime after we get back. And we'll send reminder emails about that too. Yeah, so basically it's just gonna be more of like a communication between you and your alumni about evidence-based practice, leadership, stuff that's going on in your clinical rotation or stuff that they're seeing in their everyday practice that you guys find in common. So we'll set that more up and just be on the lookout for an application email from me or Annie.
Do you want us to play it real quick and then? Okay.
I can lift you up. I can show you what you want to see. I take you where you want to be. falling down, I know that we'll be safe and sound. We're safe and sound. I can feel your cup. You know I really wanna evaporate. This world is still appreciate. You can be my love. Even in a hurricane of clouds, I know that we'll be safe and sound. We're safe and sound. We're safe and sound. We're safe and sound. I can show you that. In a tidal wave of mystery, you'll still be standing next to me. You could be my love. Even if we're 6 feet up and down, I know that we're safe and sound. We're safe and sound. I could lift you up. I could show you what you wanna see and take you where you wanna be. You could be my luck. Even if the sky is falling down, I know that we'll be safe and sound. I can lift you up. I can show you what you wanna see and take you where you wanna be. You could be my luck. Even if the sky is falling down, I know that we'll be safe and sound. We're safe and sound. We're safe and sound. We're safe and sound. We're safe and sound.
Do you want to just want to come up and talk about what you talked about in the exec meeting real quick? Or Vision 2025, or at least the Vision 2025 that you guys did.
So we sent out like a handout in the meeting notes as well for this meeting, and that has like a layout of like PTE short-term goals, long-term goals, and then kind of the sessions we attended as well. You want any more minutes to do that?
Okay, so this holiday break made it difficult for Journal Club, so you get to hear from me again. I wanted to make it holiday themed, so I was scouring the internet for like holiday lights articles or articles about falling off ladders, putting up holiday decorations, and there wasn't as much as I thought. So I ended up going with video game therapy as an intervention, just because people are shopping for video games this season. So the purpose of this study was to investigate the effectiveness of active video game therapy for children with obesity and other disabilities. So the current research out there shows more negative aspects of video games, like it increases risk of obesity, aggressive behaviors, and then it also contributes to some poor performance in the classroom. And then it was estimated that the video game industry alone brought in $30.4 billion for US revenue. And so obviously this isn't going away, and video games are going to become more and more prominent. So it's OTs, instead of maybe telling them not to play video games, we just need to adapt and bring video games to make it more therapeutic. So this is a study to determine the effectiveness of that. So the rationale for this study is that video games are an intrinsic motivation for children. They're way more willing to participate in video games than maybe standard therapy sessions, just because it's not an adult telling them what to do. It's more their intrinsic motivation that they want to play the video games. And also, video games are highly accessible and they're everywhere. And there's video games that can accommodate to many different interests of kids too. You can have sports video games, you can have fantasy video games, all that stuff. So the referrals for this were any client, but the only contraindication they said is that clients who had a history of seizures due to any visual stimulation obviously were excluded from the study for obvious reasons. So what they did is they did 30-minute sessions 3 times per week, and the group size was no more than 2 kids at one time. And then I think, yeah, there's more. So they played with the PlayStation Move Fitness, which looks like this. I am already too old for this because I don't know what it is. But I'd imagine it's like Xbox Connect, you know, where you just kind of stand and it senses your emotions and whatnot. So this is a particular game they worked on, and there was like bag toss, there was kickboxing on there, and then you also had to dodge things coming at you too. Let's see what else is in here. Oh, so to make it less of a competition between the 2 kids, the therapist explained that it's a competition of yourself. You need to beat your own score. You're not necessarily going against the other kid, so no one got hurt feelings. And beforehand, they did a warm-up session, 5-minute stretching exercises to prevent injuries playing video games. And then the 2 kids did have the ability to choose the game, so they had some autonomy there. As long as they remained physically active for the 30 minutes. They could switch between games, they could do one game for the whole remainder of the 30 minutes. It was really up to them, but they just needed to remain physically active for the 30 minutes. So these are the outcomes that they were trying to measure. They wanted to determine the effectiveness in active video games and reduction of body mass index and their overall weight. They wanted to improve their cardiovascular endurance. And then they also wanted to do a little psychological aspect and maybe have the kids make healthier decisions when choosing video games, because you can choose a video game where you're just kind of sitting and you're just using your hands, but you can also choose the video games where you're up and moving. So they were hoping that would help that. And then improve self-esteem, which is, let's go right here. You got improved self-esteem. And then also to be able to identify the importance of exercise incorporated in your everyday life. So there are 2 client groups they did this on. There were children with obesity and also children with mental or developmental disorders. So first, a little background with youth and obesity. American youth are at the highest rates compared to all the other developed countries. 1 in 5 school-age children are considered overweight or obese, and that number is astonishing to me. 20% of people are obese. And obviously, when you're overweight, it increases your risk for asthma, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease, and that also plays in a social role too. You're more likely to be socially isolated, have lower self-esteem, and miss more school days, both for psychological reasons and physical reasons, being sick. So in this, they said that the active gaming can burn almost 381 calories per hour. I think I need to get on this train. And it resulted in more physical changes. So the children who were overweight did decrease in body mass index and in weight. Didn't really have an effect on kids who were considered typically weight or typical body mass index, typical weight. It had more of an effect for kids who were already overweight. And then the study suggests that if the children replace at least one of their non-active hours of video gaming with 1 hour of active video gaming, the weight problem in the United States can maybe be better controlled. The other group was cognitive or developmental disorders, and it estimated that over 1 in 5 children are currently or at some point are affected by a debilitating mental or cognitive disorder. And so for this group, their targets were to improve emotional regulation, improve their self-control, and also improve social interaction. So the results for this, it was actually mostly physical benefits, like as with the other group, but there were minimal improvements in self-control, and also they had improvements with coping strategies as well. So then I came up with implications for OT. My imagination was running wild with this one. So to state the obvious, you can consider incorporating video games into treatment sessions if they're active ones. You can also make it an education piece for both parents and children, and maybe explaining to the kids why active video games are better than the non-active video games. I was thinking about the possibility of virtual reality as an intervention, and specifically, what are those called? That Brian always brings up, social stories. I was thinking if you could make the social stories a virtual reality, then the kids could actually experience it, and then without a non-threatening environment of an actual person interacting with them, they could interact with a video game first to kind of test the waters with that, and also to learn. As a therapist, you could step in and say, you know, that was good, but here's a better solution to that. I don't know, just a thought. Also, maybe we need more OTs in video game designing. Deck idea, anyone? You can, I think there needs to be more mainstream video games designed specifically for people with disabilities. There's a lot of adaptive equipment as far as consoles and stuff like that, but as far as the video game content itself, there's not a whole lot yet. I think that's an area for growth for anyone that's interested in technology. Okay, so winter break is upon us. This is our last meeting, as I said. So I came up with a list of books that relate to OT that I absolutely love, and maybe you guys can keep up your learning over winter break. So my first one is Brain on Fire, and this is my absolute favorite book in the world. You will read it in one day. Highly recommend. It's about a girl, she is a writer, and she all of a sudden comes down with these symptoms and can't figure it out, and neither can the doctors, and it takes the doctors forever to finally figure it out. So good. And I read this, I happened to read this right in the middle of neuroanatomy, so I thought of myself as an actual doctor because I was like, cerebral spinal fluid as I was reading this. But anyway. Another one is, so that one is a true story. It's nonfiction. Still Alice's fiction, but it's about a woman with Alzheimer's. She is a distinguished professor at, I want to say, at one of the Ivy Leagues. What was it? Is it Harvard? Boston? Yeah. And it's about her process in the dementia Alzheimer's course. Stiff, The Curious Lives of Human Cadavers. I read this before our cadaver lab last year, and it made it even more fascinating. When you think of donating your body to science, you just think of cadavers, but there's so many other things that we actually use cadavers for. So this is a weird but fascinating book about all the different uses for human cadavers after you die. My Stroke of Insight, I actually didn't read this book, but I heard it on a podcast. It's a neuroscientist who had a stroke herself. And so since she had that prior knowledge, she was able to kind of think herself through the stroke and know exactly what was happening into her body. And so it's her journey through a stroke, having a stroke, knowing exactly what is going on in her body. So she had obviously a very insightful view of a stroke herself. Outliers is, I love Malcolm Gladwell. He's my favorite author, and Outliers is my favorite book of his. And it's the whole premise of 10,000 hours makes you an expert in something. So that's something you can employ to your patients. Like, you need to get those 10,000 hours if you're going to be an expert at this. It's about a story of success, as it says, and maybe some of the, what's the word I'm looking for? Advantages some people might have over others to begin with, and then throughout the lifespan, it just keeps building and building, and so creates that little gap there. I'm just finished The Glass Castle, and it's a movie right now, so read it before you watch the movie. It's about a family who's kind of nomadic, and they're homeless. They kind of travel around the United States, somewhat running from the law, not really, but the parents are highly intelligent and think that modern society is detrimental to their children, so they like living the life of homelessness. So it's in the psychological realm, but it's fascinating. That one's also a true story. And then for anyone looking for motivation to finish our didactic coursework, like me, read The Last Lecture by Andy Posh. That one's really short. You'll read it in an hour, but it's really good and inspiring. So those are books you can read over winter break. And then documentaries you can watch over winter break. This is what I do with all my free time, guys. Okay, so the first documentary is called Alive Inside. I think I don't know if Dr. Tennis told us about it a little bit, or maybe it was Dr. Jensen, one of the two. This one is about a nursing home, and they give them all iPods, and it completely changes their whole persona just by giving them the gift of their favorite music back in the day. People who all of a sudden, couldn't move and they were sitting like this, all of a sudden getting up and dancing. So it has a psychological and a physical impact on people. The Mask You Live In is really interesting. It's about masculinity in the United States and how boys are conditioned to be a certain way. And it kind of loosely links, that a lot of our serial killers are men and a lot of people in prison are men, and they don't really think that's a coincidence. They think that has something to do with how we're brought up and conditioned. That one is still stuck with me. I watched it a couple of years ago, and it's still one of my favorites. Code Black is about emergency department. It's one emergency department in California, and it kind of shows you the ins and outs of the emergency department and how they prioritize patients, because there's just an overflow of people in the emergency department, due to healthcare, insurance policies and stuff like that. People go to the emergency room as their first line of defense, and so that clogs it up for people who, really need help. They can't get it because there's such an overflow. That one was eye-opening as well. And then Asperger's Are Us. This one is really funny and adorable. It's the first comedy troupe. They are all on the spectrum, and so it shows their life making up their comedy sketches, and then it shows them a couple of performances. It is so funny. I love it. The Woman with 7 Personalities is a documentary about dissociative identity disorder. And it is so weird because she'll be talking as one person, and all of a sudden she just switches to another person. She has a different voice, she has a different posture, different everything. It's weird, but it's cool. 13th is about mass incarceration, and it follows the book. Have you guys ever read The New Jim Crow? Anyone? That's another good book I should have added to my list. It's about mass incarceration and our overpopulated prison population, and how certain people are overrepresented in prisons than others. And then Fed Up is about childhood obesity and sugar intake. That one's another good one. Michelle Obama is featured heavily in that one. And it makes, if you are trying to cut out your sugar, watch that, because you'll be inspired. Only lasts about a month, and then you eat sugar again, but it's a good shot. Okay, do you guys have questions for any of us? This is our last meeting together as OT2s. Next one, we'll have OT1s, prospective OT1s with us. Isn't that crazy? Anyone have any other book/documentary recommendations?
I like that you did that.
Are they all on Netflix?
The documentaries that kind of come and go on Netflix. I know that the 13th is still on there. Asperger's Are Us is still on there. Alive Inside was on there a couple of years ago, but I haven't seen it since. Maybe Amazon Prime might have them too.
Code Black, you get to see next semester on Tuesday.
Oh, you do? Oh, well then save that one for next semester. That one's a good one. Yes.
The Good Doctor and ABC.
Yes.
The Good Doctor?
Yeah.
It's like airing now on ABC, but if you have Hulu, you can watch it. Watch it over or it's on Monday night.
And I watched Atypical in a weekend, I think, after you suggested it in your introduction slide.
Yeah, so.
The last lecture is also a video of him actually presenting the lecture. So if you don't want to spend half a day, 2 thirds of the day reading the book, just watch the video and have a box of tissues next to you. It's so worth it.
Yeah.
He does. Like recently.
Yeah. He
It's a cool story, but
he gave it after finding out he had pancreatic cancer, I think. Yeah. Yeah. It's a good one to go back to once in a while when you're feeling low. Jeff.
If you guys like movies, Split and Memento are really good.
Split. I've been wanting to see that one.
Yeah. He has dissociative disorder. He has like 20 different personalities, and one of them he like kidnaps these 2 girls. It's like kind of messed up, but it's really good. And then Memento is he has short-term memory loss, and his wife gets killed, and he like tries to find the murderer, but every time he like runs into a clue, he'll like forget it, but he'll like write on his body, it'll get a tattoo. It's really interesting.
Yeah. If anyone ever has documentary, book, or podcast suggestions, please let me know. Morgan?
I think that I saw it in one of the OT like practice magazines, but it's called like Travis, a Soldier Story or something. And it was on Netflix, and I can't remember if he was just a double or quadruple amputee from a recent war, and it really gets in depth with his rehab.
Oh, cool. What was that called?
I think it's called like Travis, like a Soldier Story or something.
Is Travis's name?
Yeah,
I'll look that up.
it up later.
Yeah, definitely. The documentary is Travis, and it's about a double, quadruple
I'm not sure if it was double or quadruple. I can't remember.
paraplegic man who is he dealing with probably post-traumatic stress too a little bit, or
Not
Not really?
Yeah, it was kind of inspiring because he was super motivated to like go through it.
Oh. and it's about his rehab for our distance people.
Just a shout out for Brain on Fire. How many of you read it other than you? It's fabulous, isn't it? Because it shows that how many people might have had a diagnosis of schizophrenia and they were misdiagnosed, with, it just makes you
Mhm.
wonder.
Yeah.
Because they just found out about the condition.
I have a copy, so if anyone needs to borrow, actually I think I have a copy of all those books, so if anyone needs to borrow, let me know. We can do some book exchange. We should do a book club with Pi Theta.
I kind of like that.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm sorry, I just made more work for myself. Okay, book club with just Annie, we'll do that. Get more pizza, people. Not taking it home.
Thanks for the lunch. Nice job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maggie.